Hello, and welcome to Council of the Whills, a Star Wars podcast. This week, we are continuing our breakdown and reactions to The Last Jedi. First and foremost, I'd like to say, sorry that we missed a week, but Jane was sick, and we're obviously not going to, force her to lose her voice even further by trying to do something just to put out content. But we're back now. With part 3 of our The Last Jedi reactions. And this time we're going to be focusing on the Force plot with Rey and Kylo and Luke and Snoke, and kind of delving into our favorite parts of it and knocking down the criticisms of it, and just kind of having a good old time delving into that side of the movie. So without further ado, I'm Amber.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Jane.
And let's get started. First and foremost, the last episode we put out was a kind of review of the Resistance plot, in which we were all kind of, we liked it, but it wasn't the most exciting thing, and there were some things we didn't really see a lot of merit in. But in the time since recording that one and recording this one, I've done a lot of reading on Tumblr, and I enjoy the Force plot a lot, or I enjoy the Resistance plot a lot more, because someone on Tumblr pointed it out, or maybe Twitter, I can't remember, pointed out that Canto Bight was really about showing Finn, where his future would have been if he didn't choose a side. Like, he would have ended up just like DJ, and then when he says, "You're wrong," to DJ's statement when they're on the Supremacy, that's him choosing a side. And that's really what the point of that was. And understanding that now, I have a lot more love for the Resistance plot than I did before. I guess first and foremost, within Solo, there was a leak on Reddit, possibly news, I don't quite remember, but that Solo is doing pickup shoots right now, which has made a lot of people really nervous, because they're like, "Oh, why are they doing reshoots right now?" But let me just clarify that a pickup shoot and a reshoot are two completely different things. A reshoot is when you just redo the entire scene entirely. A pickup shoot is where you basically kind of go through the scene, but what you're really doing is just getting different shots. Like, maybe you didn't quite get the coverage you wanted, you didn't get a reaction shot, the reaction shot you got wasn't quite what you wanted. Just basically, like, you didn't quite get the take you wanted, so now you're doing a pickup shoot to try to get that. A reshoot is when you go in and change, like, a lot of stuff. It's basically shooting the whole day and again, So the word pickup shoots for Solo makes people nervous, but I really don't think there's anything to worry about. That just means they're in their final editing and they're making their tweaks now. So I think it's okay. Second, there was kind of a leak regarding the Solo, what are they called? The Solo Lego sets. Yeah, the toys. So there was a leak of a picture a while back that was supposedly a leak for Solo, but like Disney and Lucasfilm denied that it was theirs, but now it's showing up on the corner of Lego boxes, so somebody's a liar. But that's okay. We're fine with that. Looks pretty great. It's got, Han and Chewie and Lando and Kira, who is Emilia Clarke's character, which the spelling of her name is
QI''RA.
Yeah, which is hilarious because, Kira, Kira, has been a pretty common name popping up in Star Wars pre-production for a while. It was Rey's original name, and it was the name of the Jedi girl that Luke teaches in George's original outline for 7, 8, and 9. So it's got a lot of, history, but I guess they changed it up just for funsies. But yeah, there's a lot of, Lego sets for Solo that have come out as a leak, and they're pretty interesting. For the most part, there's not like a lot of stormtroopers and Imperials and stuff like that. But what is interesting is we get some like characters, which is fun.
Based on some of the pictures, it looks like we're actually going to be going to Corellia, which you would assume we would be going to Corellia in a Han Solo movie, but you never know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want a Corellian Hound really bad.
I know they look so cute. Ugly, but like
They
ugly cute.
do. Yeah.
I'm gonna admit that looking at some more of these pictures now, I'm like, oh, Corellia looks super dirty because everybody has the weird splatter on their costumes that look like they're on Corellia.
I mean, I think it's an industrial planet in general because, I mean, obviously they build ships there in some capacity. So, I don't actually know a whole lot about Corellia. So fine, shoot me, I guess.
I don't think anybody does.
I know, it's such a mess.
To be fair, I've just been looking at Kira's costume pictures, the two Legos, and being like, how many pin tucks are randomly on this? How many princess themes are on this? All of them. That's all it is. That's how the costume's made. That's it. You're welcome.
Yeah, it's looking to be a bit of a mess. But so we get kind of our first look at Kira. She looks pretty cool. What's interesting is that I'm not seeing a lot of Lando. Like, I do see some Lando, but not like a lot. So I'm just wondering if he's maybe not in this movie as much as we think.
I think if he is, it would be because I mean this is, as I understand, Solo is going to be a compilation of Han's earlier days. It isn't. There's going to be time jumps, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
it would make sense that we don't really see Lando until probably like the end of the second act, beginning of the third act, because again, like based on these toy leaks, it looks like we're going to be seeing the Kessel Run, and Han's acquisition of the Falcon from Lando, which could be part of the Kessel Run. We don't know.
Oh man, do we know how Han actually got the Falcon?
No, we don't. But there's a Lego set that talks about the Kessel. Like it says
it's the Falcon.
Yeah, but there's another one.
Looking Falcon.
It's a new Falcon.
I think it's the same Falcon, just like modified, or like maybe when it was like newer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the new Falcon.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It definitely was something that just said like Kessel that I saw on this. Yeah, Kessel Run Millennium Falcon. And then you look at it and it's everybody and they're doing it, and hold on, something else said Kessel Run, that like it's a Kessel operation droid.
Yep.
That's what it was. I was like, what?
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And as I understand, the Kessel Run is run through Hutt space. So are we going to be seeing more of the Hutt quadrant? Like, you know what I mean? What is this movie actually going to be about?
Maybe the bounty on Han Solo's head. Because it's looking like he and Kira, if you're looking at this, get off of Corellia somehow. But because they're in a speeder together, and there's a Corellian hound chasing them. So I don't know what's going on. Yeah, she's smiling and he's shooting, but she's smiling and shooting. So you go, girl. You smile and shoot.
Yeah,
I am. Go again.
Oh, I was reading somewhere, and I think it was from when the set photos leaked all those months ago, shortly after Ron Howard took over the reshoots, that Kira is supposed to be some sort of collector of some sorts, and she hires Han to acquire something for her. I don't know, because on the set photos with her in it, it's just very lavish and very what's the word, ornate, kind of like Dumbledore's office in space. That's what the set photos look like.
That's pretty cool. I'm looking at the one with Kira and Han in their speeder, and do we know anything about Moloch? Like, anything? Because I'm getting a villain vibe from this, because looks like he's shooting at them, and he's got the hounds with him.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I will admit though, I haven't been as tuned into the Solo news with Last Jedi coming out. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Um, there was some speculation that Thandie Newton's character was going to be this Quay Toolsite.
Mm-hmm.
But this Quay looks like a pike. Like, just the minifigure looks like a pike, which is, an alien species kind of affiliated with the spice trade. And Thandie Newton was seen on set with an Imperial officer costume. So I think that speculation may be just a little bit off.
Well, wasn't it on what was it? It was on Twitter, and I think it was from Star Wars Legacy. I don't know, some Twitter account. They released the full names of some of the characters in the Solo movie. Like Woody Harrelson's character is called Tobias Beckett.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, Tobias Beckett is Imperial. He's in Imperial costume in one of these images. Tobias is Imperial.
Well, now I'm kind of wondering if maybe how many Star Wars movies can we theoretically? Oh, do you think they're gonna go with the Han Solo backstory where he joined the Imperial Academy and then left?
Please do.
That would be awesome. That would give.
Because that would be so much better for the Kylo Ren storyline of I would have joined the First Order, and Han's just like, why?
Well, I mean, think about the fact that Luke was gonna join the Imperial Academy before he ran into a droid on repeat and met his dad's homie and but yeah, Luke was gonna join the Imperial Academy just to have something to do. It would be really interesting if they ended up going with that.
I would love that.
And then maybe, Woody Harrelson's character bails out with him or helps him leave or encourages him to leave maybe.
Well, what's
I don't
weird?
know.
What's weird is on Reddit, it's the official descriptions of the toys from Lego. And when it's talking about Beckett, it says in parentheses, Imperial Disguise, and that Han also has an Imperial Disguise.
Interesting. So, yet again, we're going undercover in the bad guy's clothes. I've only seen 7 or 8 movies like this.
I'm sensing a bit of a pattern here.
Yeah.
What?
Star Wars have a pattern. What?
Do you think they're just going to name the anthology series Good Guys Dressing Up as Bad Guys?
Actually, you know what they're going to name it? Good guys, bad guys. What's the difference?
You're probably not wrong, to be honest.
And that's just Benicio del Toro standing there. It's like Star Wars anthology, good guys, bad guys.
Let me learn you something. You shoot at them today, they blow you up tomorrow. It's just business.
You're wrong.
Oh, we can't even talk about Han Solo without talking about Last Jedi. Damn it.
I know, we're literally the worst. It's so hard.
Well, I'm sitting here being like, do I need to get yellow leather? What? At least the black pants are going to be easy. The black shirt looks to be easy because I'm looking at this costume. I need a wig for the bangs. And then I'm like, but it doesn't matter. Let's go talk about Last Jedi.
The good news is that if you do make a yellow jacket, you can also double up your costume as April O'Neil from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I was thinking you were going to say Luke from the comics.
No, I'm a nerd in a lot of capacities.
Yes.
Oh my god, speaking of Ninja Turtles, do y'all know, how familiar are y'all with Teenage?
A little bit.
Not very.
Then I may need to just send you the picture. But no, there's this villain in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. His name is Krang, and he's just this brain inside of an android body.
I remember that.
Well, today one of the guys in my Star Wars Facebook group posted a picture of shirtless Kylo Ren edited to have Krang inside his stomach. And I got really upset. He's not an android. To be fair, though, the android does walk around shirtless with high pants, so I get it. But fuck you.
Ben Swolo.
Yeah.
Have you seen the person who made the avatar of really shirtless, beefy, buff Kylo Ren and called him Ben Swolo in Star Wars: The Old Republic, the RPG.
Oh my god.
It's
I have
awesome.
not seen this. I have not. I love it. I love it a lot. But yeah, I guess that's really all the Solo news we have at this point. Not a whole lot is really going on with Solo just yet. So yeah, I guess with that Solo stuff, being the last thing on our mind because we keep moving away from it in conversation, we will move on to the actual meat and potatoes of this thing, which is our Force plot discussion of The Last Jedi. Force plot, of course, involves Rey, Kylo Ren, Luke, and Snoke. What did you think was the most interesting aspect of the Force plot?
I'm like how curious everybody sort of is about the Force, because it really does highlight that nobody, like, how much knowledge has been lost. And that's sort of just off the top of my head, because like Rey's like, oh my god, teach me how to do this, and like literally puts her hand out to be like, I feel the Force, and Luke's like, that's not how you do this. But even Kylo's like, we're being connected. What is this? This is new. This is different. Oh my god! Like, the newer generation has no idea about how the Force works, literally. And even Luke is like, the sacred Jedi text, and Yoda's like, fuck them.
Page turners, they were not.
Yeah. So it's the Last Jedi really shows how much the Jedi Order is no more.
At least the
And
Jedi Order that we're used to.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of on that same page. I don't think it's necessarily like personally, I think that the reason that Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, is curious about the Force is because he's a fucking nerd. But like it was really interesting that Rey only seems to want to be taught because she realizes that she needs to have a place in this, and she doesn't know what that place is, so she assumes that she needs to learn the Force and all that. And yeah, I mean, she assumes that she needs to learn the Force because she's, clearly strong in it to some capacity. And I think it's more of a duty for her at that point than a desire to learn it. I think she just wants, a place to belong. But I don't know. My favorite part of the Force plot was really Luke's story. I know it gets a lot of hate. I know it gets, a lot of people like, that's not my Luke. Even Mark Hamill having to start that whole kerfuffle with the, Jake Skywalker bullshit. But which he has since, like, apologized and re-clarified for. But, like, when you really think about it, like, Luke has never been infallible. Like, he's had really strong resolve, but he also is, prone to failure in that capacity. Like, the dark side isn't, a thing you defeat once and then it's done. So when people are like, oh, well, he resisted the dark side with Vader, why would he, almost kill his nephew? Like, because it's the fucking dark side, and it's always gonna be like, do the thing.
Uh,
Well, that's what makes Luke.
Like,
It's what makes Luke so compelling and so interesting. And Luke has never been, and I've said it before, and I still maintain it, that Luke has never been this, only light side, like only this paragon of light and righteousness and holiness, and it's never been Luke. If you watch Return of the Jedi, he's force choking Jabba's guards. He's never been, there's that struggle has always been within Luke, even though it's never been outward. And even as you said, Amber, when we did our trailer reaction to the Last Jedi trailer, that your outside tends to reflect your insides, Luke is dressed in black. And the symbolism is there that Luke has this darkness within him, and he struggles with it. He struggles with that darkness, and we see the culmination of that in The Last Jedi. And he ultimately overcomes it, but he overcomes it in a way that the audience doesn't necessarily want, but the character needs. Does that make sense?
yes.
absolutely.
It's just with Luke, and I'm trying to be really restrained about this because I've just tired of people getting into arguments about it. But the whole character arc with Luke is that he needed to struggle. if it was EU Luke who comes out of Octo being a badass, who trains Rey and goes and kicks Kylo's ass and destroys the entire AT-AT army because he's that OP in the books, what would be the point of Luke? Really and truly, what would be the point of him other than to just be, you press the Luke button and everyone dies? There's no conflict.
I get a lot. I see so much criticism for, like, why would Luke ever try to kill his nephew? Like, that's not Luke. That's not the Luke we know. And it's so insane to me that people don't understand that Luke wouldn't kill his nephew. Like, that's the point. Everyone in the world knows that Luke won't kill his nephew. And the only person who doesn't know that is his nephew. And at that point, that's the one who matters. Like, it's not that he ever would kill his nephew, it's that he was tempted to do it, and it had, like, long-lasting consequences because he was seen contemplating it. It was an instantaneous reaction to what he saw. And I'm not totally convinced that Snoke wasn't manipulating Luke just as much as he was Ben.
Well, that was something I wanted to ask both of you guys about, because at least with The Last Jedi, we got some backstory, but we didn't. It feels like there's more backstory that we need to know, especially on the end with Ben, because just this cursory Luke reading his mind, which I think was interesting because that's where Ben picked up that trick. It wasn't from Snoke, it was from fucking Luke.
No, but it's rape.
Yeah, don't even get me started on it. Don't even get me started on it. Ben obviously struggled with this. We have confirmation by Leia in the books that she knew that Ben was struggling with Snoke manipulating his mind, but we haven't seen it in the film yet. We haven't had any clarification. We haven't had any expansion. It still feels like there's this big gap of what happened.
Yeah. We actually have a really, like, small list of announced books for 2018 and 2019 and whatnot. Pretty much just, like, I don't know, like another Thrawn series, a Padme book, stuff like that. And so I'm wondering if we're not gonna be getting, like, a Luke and Ben adventures kind of book where they go into this more.
Honestly, the only Ben book I want is a YA novel where Ben is super awkward and brooding about being at Jedi camp with his weekly hollow calls to Mom Leia. That's all I want.
Aww.
And he's like, I feel this weird voice in my head and I don't know, but it's time to call Mom. And then, Leia's going, you should really call your father. And he's like, oh, I'll talk to him. And, like, this is the entire book. Dear Disney, let me write it.
Like, Mom, can you give me some more paper for my calligraphy set?
Mom, look, I drew your name really nicely in the style of old Iranian calligraphy. Oh, Ben, can you send that to me? Yeah, okay, Mommy, I love you. And then, like, he sends it, and she has it framed on her wall because that's what she does. And then Han's like, kid, can you do me something curly? And he's like, no.
Hey, Jen.
Yeah.
Hey, Jen. Fuck you for that image.
Han's like, yo, Ben, can you forge some documents for me?
And Ben's like, last time, Dad, last time. Because Mom doesn't like it when you go to jail.
I guess I just want, like, a more definitive backstory. Like, I guess with JJ's script, like, they can move forward with telling what stories they want to tell once they know what the actual timeline is going to be for realsies. Because I know that Claudia kind of, like, forced Ryan's hand, I think, with making Ben older when things happened. Because I think it was assumed that he was younger when things happened, but then Claudia was like, yeah, 23 is when the Darth Vader reveal was. And they're like, well, I guess it was sometime after that.
Well, the thing is that Claudia's book, I think probably a draft of it had to have been submitted looking at the timeline before Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, like before at least Last Jedi was done. And that somebody had to go in there knowing everything with The Force Awakens and okay Ben Solo's age. Like, they had to go in and be like, yes, this is an okay age. This is what we're going to do. Maybe even pre-Force Awakens. Actually, I don't think it could have been pre-Force Awakens, because I feel like looking at the timeline, it was Force Awakens was already being filmed and everything. I am thinking that every single thing in the novels that have come out since the new canon has to be approved. So maybe JJ was seeing Ben Solo as a little bit younger, but everybody else agreed, no, he's in his 20s when this happens.
I just really hope we get like some more information.
I don't know, we might get more because it's insinuated, kind of, sort of, but not really stated, so it's open for JJ to really do what he wants. It's insinuated that the Knights of Ren were former students of Luke who turned to protect Ben, or at least to side with Ben. And if we're seeing, or will see, the Knights of Ren in 9, then we probably really won't get much in terms of backstory, I don't think, until 9 comes out, or as just a setup for what's going to happen in 9. But I don't think they revealed the Knights of Ren before in a book before they would reveal them on screen.
My theory as far as like the Knights of Ren and like the students turning is basically Ben woke up from, crushing himself and his uncle with a house, and he like kind of ran out to everybody, and everybody probably like saw the house fall down and whatnot, or heard it, and everyone came out. Ben was like, Luke tried to kill me, and half the students were like, what? He would never. You murdered him. And the other kids were like, hey, Ben's a good kid. I'll fight you. And so there wasn't like any slaughter happen. It was just a fight.
I would agree.
I mean, and the other thing is that we're seeing with all these flashbacks even is from Luke's perspective, he's waking up to his temple being destroyed. So yes, there are bodies on the ground, but we don't know really how they got there. We're seeing the aftermath of it. Kind of going on the Force plot with all this, what do you guys think that Luke sort of sometimes just hangs out in his old, like literally the clothes that the temple was destroyed in? Like, they have the ash on them and they're gross and all that stuff.
Do you remember the first episode we did where our Snoke theory was about that Barash vow or whatever?
Yep.
I often think about that. I kind of wonder if like the reason he, if part of this really is like his penance more so than, more than him like running away or whatever, just being upset that he failed. Like, I wonder if it kind of is like a way of him taking like the Barash vow, and like his penance is to like wear the clothes from that night and think about, how he fucked up.
It's in the visual dictionary, but it's kind of insinuated that Luke was committing like Jedi Seppuku when Rey found him. I think close to the wording was that Luke reserved his Jedi robes for his one final ceremony, and that's what he was in the middle of doing when Rey shows up on Octo to give him the saber.
He was about to kill himself, and she just has really weird timing.
It's not stated outright, but it's kind of insinuated, kind of, sort of, ish, from a certain point of view in the visual dictionary.
What I was actually thinking is that she manages to show up on what he considers the anniversary of the temple destruction. Because that would be really interesting, especially because we're going with, maybe that's the same day that Kylo Ren is going in front of Snoke, and he's like, my training's done, everything is done, and it's like, great, because it's this momentous day, it's the anniversary of this thing happening, I can finally be a good thing on this day. And he's like, BT dub, no, also all this other stuff, and you suck, and your training's not complete. And he's like, rah, rah, rah.
Visual dictionary. Let me find some Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, no, the Luke pages were interesting because I was a bad person and read the visual dictionary when it leaked. I was convinced, that mural of the first Jedi, that's Snoke. And
oh yeah, that's definitely, it's got super Snokey vibes to it, but Luke Skywalker. Oh, Luke's donning of ceremonial robes is not an indication of a return to faith. Rather, Luke sees it as his last right to end the order. Skywalker studies reveal the cyclical nature of the struggle between light and dark and the massive toll the galaxy pays with each cycle. Yeah, that's it doesn't outright say that he was going to throw himself off a cliff, but it kind of his last right to end the order. That is dark.
A little bit. A little bit.
What the fuck, Luke?
Jedi Seppuku. Speaking of seppuku, dude, the Kurosawa, Rashomon references were everywhere in the Force plot. I'm like, damn, I'm not even a film student, and I'm like, that's from Rashomon.
Oh, I totally got that too. I'm like, oh, we're getting the Rashomon thing. We're getting the Rashomon thing. That was my contribution.
What?
What?
Dude, they actually give the caretakers a name.
What are they?
The Lani,
the Lanai or something like that. It says female, which means there's gotta be males. Oh, the male Lanai are known as the visitors. They're told monthly to feed the what? Okay, well, I know what I'm reading this weekend. All of this is very interesting. I'm very excited. That is a ladder made of bones.
What's actually kind of cool is the caretakers and the porgs share a common ancestor. It's just one was a whole lot smarter than the others. It's just so cute.
I love it.
Wait, what? I'm like, is the smarter ancestor the porgs?
No, the caretakers.
I like how I'm just like, but porgs!
Oh, they're
yeah,
so
we
cute.
all want the porgs to be the smart ones.
I mean, they managed to make it on the Falcon and nest there, so good job.
Do you think we're gonna?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you think we're gonna see a porg in 9 since one kind of snuck on board?
One, a whole
not just
family
one.
stuck on board.
Yeah, there was a nest.
Yes, there's a lot of porgs on the Falcon. Like, I'm waiting for Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, whatever he decides to call himself that day, Emo McHigh Pants, I don't know. Getting on the Falcon and being like, how dare you let these things nest in my ship? And Rey's like, what the fuck? This isn't your ship. You hate it. He's like, fine. My family ship, fine. Get them off. Like, I would, this isn't going to happen, but I would love that scene.
What do y'all make of Octo being an island that's just so pure with the Force?
I think that it's very interesting, and I think it's interesting that Luke Skywalker was then able to shut himself off from the Force on the island that's pure Force, because it took me a couple of viewings to realize, I'm like, wait, so that's why Leia needed a map to find Luke, even though the second he reopens his Force connection, she's like, Luke. It's because he ran away from her in such a way that he couldn't be found by anyone. It was, I'm gonna hide even my Force signature. And I was like, damn, Luke, damn.
To be fair, people are saying that it's not really possible for Rey to cut off her Force bond with Kylo, but I think it's definitely possible for her to cut off the Force bond. However, I think it has to be an active sort of thing for her.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think she wants to lose the Force, but I do think that you can cut off your connection with other people. So I am wondering if maybe she's going to be able to perhaps reject his call, put him on read.
New number, who dis?
Who dis?
I think it will depend entirely on the direction they choose to go with the Force bond, because the OG Force bond, you couldn't do it. You were connected, and that was that. And if someone died, and then you're going to feel that void forever. So I'm not sure how literally or how far they're going to take the Force bond. And speaking of Force bond,
then you also have to remember is, does JJ like the Force bond? Does he want to write his script with that in mind, or does he just want to go with the idea that Rey cut it off and now they have to work around that?
I don't know.
Does he have a plot in mind that would be rendered completely useless if the Force bond existed?
I don't know, but it's such a good plot device. it's so good at pushing character and putting these two characters that are diametrically opposed to each other, but they can't ignore each other. And if one dies, the other is permanently affected. It's such a good plot device to get people engrossed in. I mean, we already care about these characters, but care more about these characters that to just be like, I don't really like it.
So, hold on. What you're saying is that a force bond is a soulmate to you, and we're gonna get this potentially played out on screen.
Possibly. Well, like, again, like, I love Knights of the Old Republic. I love KOTOR. I want it to be canon. I probably say it at least once an episode. But watching the Force plot, it's even down to Luke cutting himself off from the Force. It's a very, I don't want to say soft retelling because it's not. It's on a direct one-to-one retelling of Knights of the Old Republic. But you can tell that Rian Johnson has played the game and he likes the game and he likes the story and he's telling a similar story. I was like, even in KOTOR and in the books that follow KOTOR, there's a character called Mitra who is completely cut off from the Force. You even have something down to that, and that's where the origin of the Force bond came from, was between Bastila and Revan, who are kind of a lot like Kylo and Rey. And yeah, we could have a whole episode on the sequel trilogy is KOTOR made canon, but yeah.
I'm definitely okay with that. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Force bond is probably one of my favorite aspects because, like, you know, like the way that Rey kind of softens to Kylo over what is clearly the period of a day, just based on, you know, the shadows and everything. Like, she wakes up and she has a Force bond with him, and then anyway, so basically it's over the period of a day that they have all these conversations, and she goes from, you know, telling him he's gonna just die, he's gonna kill him, or he's gonna pay for what he did or whatever, to, you know, reaching out to him and thinking she can save him. Like, that happens over a very short period of time. And so you kind of get the feeling that the Force bond is more than them just being able to see and talk to each other. Like, I think there may be like an empathy connection involved in there as well, because the way they react to each other in those kind of like unspoken ways is far more interesting than their dialogue at times, you know?
Absolutely agreed. I think it was earlier today there was an article that came out that talks about how elements of Kylo and Rey's relationship were pre-established in The Force Awakens specifically for this, when their minds are connected with the interrogation scene and how they both push and pull from each other's minds and each other's memories to have this really interesting dynamic between them. Let's see if I can find it.
Also, like, not to gloat, but oh, Rey and Kylo were set up to be connected in The Force Awakens? Gosh, who could have seen that coming?
Who saw them be having a connection of any kind in The Force Awakens?
What? You
And
mean they don't have a battle with each other and try to kill each other because they're enemies on opposite sides? What?
You
Yeah.
mean Rey's compassionate and forgiving? No.
Not like Carrie said that in an interview at all.
Oh
that's
man.
actually kind of one of the things that gets me is Rey is actually very caring when people show an interest in her. Like, she does that with Finn. It's like, you know, with the droid, but he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be with you," and she's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I guess we're friends now. Yay, I have a friend." She's like that with Han. She's like that with Leia. So, you know, yes, during the Force bond, she's like, "Murderous snake, I hate you," and he's like, "But I want to know what we're doing." Also, you're not wrong, but you know, like, he's just curious and asking her about this and everything. So it's it makes sense that she feels a connection and starts to care about him because it's the same thing. Like, he's asking her how she feels, what's going on with her, and she's like, "I don't know how to compute this, but thank you for caring about me. Let's I you're telling me about you, I'll tell you about me, and I care. Whereas she beats and prods Luke for that same thing.
And Luke, even until the end, is like, the Jedi who are evil. It's hubris.
God, they just have like such a fascinating connection to each other, and like it's so fun like seeing the Force that way, because we don't really get something like that. Like we get Luke and Leia being able to sense each other over distances and whatnot, and like that's cool, and I appreciate that, But like this is something completely new, completely different, and Ryan did it with the specific purpose to like introduce new versions of the Force to us and how that can be useful, and it's I don't know, it's really nice. Ugh. So here's a question for you guys. What do you make of the symbol on the floor on Octo?
I had never even really thought about it. I mean, I know I should have been looking at it. I should have it's supposed to mean something. Not sure what it means because every time the water would shake which was when you could really see it because Luke got back with the Force, all I could think of is chaos theory. And there's a dinosaur somewhere, and Laura Dern's just going to come in, or Holdos is going to come in riding the Triceratops. I'm like, and it's every time I'm seeing it, I'm like, that's not how this movie works. And I'm going, na, 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 na,
Laura Dern.
So I really wasn't paying attention because I kept trying not to think about Jeff Goldblum laying out with his shirt open going, my leg is damaged.
I'm a little bit obsessed with the mosaic on the floor, enough so that I'm contemplating like getting it. Like making my own. But like I mean if it does turn out to be like an image of Snoke, I'm gonna hate it, but whatever. But I think it really like sums up like what the Jedi were supposed to be about, and I think it features as prominently as it does, because there's no such thing as an accident in a well-made movie. Everything that's in a scene, everything that is art design is there to really put the idea in our head. And so, we really do get this idea of Rey, who is light but runs towards darkness, and this idea of Kylo Ren, who is dark but runs towards the light. It's interesting to see that little mosaic on the floor because it's a single, it's this one person. There's two like little spherical symbols. One is black with like little bits of white, and the other is white with little bits of black, and like it's as close to a Star Wars YinYang as we're going to get. And so if that's meant to be the Prime Jedi, the first Jedi that ever existed, I can only assume that means like you're supposed to be balanced. I think that's kind of going to be where 9 goes, because you have to. I mean, we do have these two characters who are balanced within themselves and balanced together. I don't know. I just think it was featured really prominently for that reason, for us to kind of get used to the idea that like the Jedi are not the ultimate good, and the Sith are not the ultimate bad, and there can be balance. You can pull from both sides of the Force without you immediately falling to the dark side if you're strong and truly balanced.
I agree with everything you just said, and I also believe that is a bit of visual foreshadowing that's going to carry over into 9, because I don't believe for a second that JJ wasn't writing and working and collaborating with Ryan after Trevorrow was given the boot. I believe that he was working with Ryan as soon as JJ realized he could come back to the project and finish it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been beat over the head with the word balance so many times, and now we have this mosaic of the first Prime Jedi that shows balance, of actual balance. And the same thing is on Octo. You have the tree that's very symbolizes the light side of the Force. Then you have the blowhole cave, which is symbolizing of the dark side of the Force. So even Octo has balance on it, and I think it would be a sham and really bad writing if in the last movie they decide to disregard all of that symbolism and everything that's been built up over these past two movies to go with, okay, kill the bad guy and everything's good again.
Yeah, I can't imagine that being like everyone is expecting to have this like Vader-like figure, this Emperor-like figure, and I think like everyone's expecting it to be Kylo Ren because the big bad is always a Force user, and I don't think that's how it's gonna play out. But no, I mean you're totally right. Like everything on Octo is balanced. Like when Rey is meditating, she's like, there's life, there's death, there's destruction, there's sadness, there's cold, there's warmth, and all of these things. And what she finds is that the Force is not these extremes, but the energy between. I think that's a really important lesson to kind of take away from what the Force is. Like, the Force is not the dark side or the light side, it is the energy between, and that's where the balance is.
Very, very, very much agreed. Before we kind of tend to, because we do tend to kind of segue into Raylo, um, what did you guys think of one, Rey's parents, and two, what happens with Snoke?
I love them both.
Yeah.
Rey's parentage is really important to me. Not like, oh, well, if Rey's not this, I quit the series, important to me. What I mean is how her parentage is revealed and what it actually is meaningful to me, I suppose, is a better way to phrase that. Because, it's crazy to me, like, how long, and, like, as someone who thought she was a Kenobi, like, I'm guilty of this, but it's crazy to me, like, how many people insisted that she had to be from some sort of powerful lineage because she's powerful. And what we really get is this idea that the Force chooses who it chooses. Like, you can see that in the prequel trilogy. Like, there's so many Jedi, and since the Jedi don't breed, like, obviously they were just spontaneously chosen to have the Force work through them in some capacity.
I mean, that's yes and no. The Jedi don't breed in quotation marks, but the Jedi, that's one thing that George Lucas has said. He's like, the Jedi can't have attachments. That doesn't mean they can't have sex.
Yeah,
So,
but canonically, like, Anakin and one other person, like, have children. And so, like, I think it would just be kind of weird if the Jedi were just running out and, like, procreating with everybody. Though my dad does believe, he thinks the idea of Anakin's, like, virgin birth is, like, malarkey, and he thinks that Shmi was a prostitute on another planet before she got sold into slavery on Tatooine, and that she just says that that he has no father, but really it was some Jedi popping into the brothel. And when he told me that, I was like, what? He's like, isn't that what's, like, clearly, hinted at? And I'm like, I don't think so. And he's like, oh, well, I thought it was pretty apparent that she was, like, she worked in the sex industry before she got sold into whatever she does on Tatooine. And I'm like, a little bit mind blown, because I don't know, like, I don't know if my dad's crazy or if I'm blind.
I don't know. I did not pick that up from Shmi, but
I didn't either, but yeah, my
I
dad.
didn't either, but that, I mean, it's entirely possible.
I mean, can you imagine that they staked their entire, the Jedi staked their entire organization on the shoulders of this kid who they thought was a virgin birth made by the midichlorians, and he's not. But no, like, the thing I really enjoy about Rey is the fact that she does come from nothing, and Snoke even says it. Like, the reason she's so powerful is because the Force chose her to be Kylo Ren's equal in the Force. Like, it's not that she comes from a powerful lineage and, like, she has to have the proper number of midichlorians in order to be strong. It's that the Force has chosen her to be strong in the Force because Kylo Ren is strong in the Force.
I kind of like that a lot. That it's like, and it kind of opens the door that for everybody that is strong, your equal and opposite exists in the galaxy somewhere, and it's whether or not that they are activated when you are. So in theory, somewhere out in the galaxy was an equal and opposite of Anakin.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always like to think that the equal and opposite of Luke is Leia.
I think
Very
that's
much
exactly
agree.
where we. So are you guys familiar with the Darth Vader comic at all? Have y'all seen the latest issue?
Negative.
No.
So Vader is fighting, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Jocasta,
Jocasta?
Jocasta New or something like that. Anyway, they're fighting, and I want to say Jocasta. I don't know why. Um, but like Jocasta New and Vader are fighting, and Jocasta says like the gist of it is basically like, Vader is stupid for trying to like destroy all of the Jedi because destroying the Jedi doesn't get rid of the Force. Like the Force will always pick new people to work through. Like I think that really lends itself in Rey's case because, there's not a lot of Force users in the galaxy as far as we can tell. And so, it picks this girl from Jakku to wield it to such a strong capacity.
It picks this random girl from Jakku to do that, and it picks her for whatever. It's like you have the ability to do this. I don't. It's interesting, and I wonder if like it's because like she's chosen out of everybody to be that, because I don't know if it's something where there's always that person or they have to be in quote unquote activated, but because Kylo Ren sets foot on Jakku and is like, that's what starts the whole journey of everybody, is that he's on Jakku trying to get the map, and that's what turns Finn, and then they end up there. But it's like him being there, the Force is like, all right, this is where it begins, and here is the opposite. Here's the Force user that's here that can be his opposite. Start her on her journey.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is that she says she's always had these like dreams and visions and stuff like that, but she's 10 years younger, 9 or 10 years younger than Kylo Ren, and so you kind of wonder if her birth maybe was, maybe not like not like guided by the Force in the sense of like Anakin, but like guided by the Force in the sense of, the birth control failed or her drunkard parents hooked up,
Yeah.
And it just kind of like led to her creation because they could sense that Snoke was coming. The Force can tell that Snoke was corrupting Ben, even at 10 years, not 8, 9, 10 years old. And so it was like, well, we're going to need someone special, so let's kind of guide her in this way. Let's prepare her for the island where, she's going
Things
to
will
go.
happen.
So weird, though, that she's had dreams of this island her entire life, and she spends a day or two on it. But what happens on that island for her is so significant that it's clearly been leading her to this her entire life.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, also what I like too is that it furthers the idea that they are equals but opposites. Kylo comes from, lavishness, and he comes from a legacy, and he comes from a bloodline. And Rey comes from poverty and a big sand bowl dust of nothing. And they are both just as powerful as each other. Which goes back to balance, that everything needs to be balanced.
I mean, I completely agree. Like, I think it even kind of goes further into the whole yin-yang aspect of their existence, is that she's his opposite in almost every single way, Like, the things they have in common are more, what are the words? More emotional and that sort of thing. Like, they can relate to each other's experiences, but in different ways. Um, Shut up, no one asked you.
It's a cat
Um,
meow. It's on an episode without a cat meow.
but you know, he comes from important legacies, and like you said, you know, he came from like this amazing life and still felt like he was ignored and rejected. And Rey comes from nothing and feels like she was ignored and rejected. And so the message here is that, like, your circumstances don't dictate, like, how, shut up, I'm talking. Your circumstances don't dictate, you know, like, how you get treated, you know? It's one of these things where, like, anyone can feel lonely, no matter where they come from. And sometimes two lonely people's best hope is each other.
Exactly.
Indeed. Well, they find commonality and they find kinship with each other despite being so different, so diametrically opposed, because they share similar experiences.
Yep.
But yeah, and before we get too distracted by Raylo, because this next topic's also gonna breach it a little bit, but Snoke. Were you disappointed with his lack of a backstory? Do you think it really doesn't matter, or was Snoke the big JJ red herring that everyone was expecting, but not as Snoke, but as Rey?
I think Snoke was Snoke, and that Snoke was meant to
Fuck a
be there.
Snoke.
Yeah, Snoke was meant there to die. And I think that nobody at Lucasfilm, I think, really thought how invested fans would be in the idea that Snoke had to be something and that we needed to find out Snoke's identity. Which, I mean, given the history of fans, they should have thought about. But that he was always meant to die in the second movie. It was always, that was the plan. So, whereas fans really wanted Snoke to be something and do all this stuff, and it is hinted, I think, in the visual dictionary that Snoke was like one of the first Force users. That's great, but there would be no way to fit it into the plot of the movie, and that it kind of gets left out for other plot developments. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't Ryan say that Snoke has a backstory, but he just didn't see a place for it in his film?
Yes, the visual dictionary hints a little bit at it on the Snoke page. It talks about how he was part of this travelers, for lack of a better word, these like unknown regions and navigators who inadvertently found the Imperial remnant, and it's these travelers that helped build his that Oculus device thing that Rey looks into. So he definitely has a pre-written backstory, but I think in context of The Last Jedi, it just wasn't important. We didn't need to know it. We just needed to know that he was an asshole and Kylo was going to kill the asshole.
You know, it's really funny because I was really shocked by Snoke dying, but looking back, like, I see how much sense it actually makes, and I'm mad at myself for not seeing it coming. Have you guys read my meta where I kind of talk about what this trilogy is about?
Which I've read so many meta. Which one?
So I wrote this meta, and it's basically about how the entire trilogy is essentially about growing up, and how The Force Awakens was really about kind of like discovering your skills, like taking your first steps, thank you, Obi-Wan, stuff like that. Like, it's very much about like infancy and childhood and that like early developmental stage in your life. And then The Last Jedi is very much about like adolescence and puberty to an extent, because what we really get here is a rejection of the masters, and in that you know, extension, a rejection of parental figures. Because, you know, Kylo even points out that Rey is trying to make a father out of Luke in some capacity, and then she rejects him for Ben. And then you have, you know, Kylo who has Snoke as a pseudo father figure, and he ends up rejecting him in favor of Rey. And it's the crux of the meta was basically that, you know, they're very much those like teenagers right now who are like slamming doors and screaming at their parents because they don't understand love, and, you know, you just don't get it, I love him, but it's like a really shallow kind of love where you expect them to be everything you want them to be, and you don't understand compromise or anything like that. And so I feel like I really should have seen this coming, like Snoke's death coming, because, I always knew that he would reject Snoke in some capacity, but I didn't think that it would be straight up by death. But because I thought Luke was going to die, I guess I should have seen it coming, because the balance. Snoke had to die because Luke was going to die, and Luke had to die because Snoke was going to die. Like, they're each other's matches. And so, yeah, and so, like, I'm not mad at it, because I understand that this trilogy is about growing up, and how Episode 9 has to be about adulthood, about how Kylo Ren has to be the supreme leader, shitty as he may be. Maybe this is like his dropping out of college phase, where he has to fail as supreme leader in order to get to where he really needs to be as an adult and mature and whatnot. And Rey has to go through the same thing, where she's going to have to fail and again, and then she has that maturity to be the adult that, the metaphor of the trilogy dictates. And so, you have, The Force Awakens is about infancy and childhood, and The Last Jedi is about adolescence and puberty, and 9 is going to be about adulthood and maturity, and that's how the whole trilogy goes. And so, yeah, like, Snoke and Luke had to die in order for the story to continue on that way.
To add to that, not only is there the story of growing up, but one of the overarching themes that I noticed was getting old. Because you see it with the legacy characters and passing on the torch to this new generation who needs to grow up.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, even though, like, my meta specifically focused on Rey and Kylo, like, you also have it with Poe. And to an extent, Finn rejecting Phasma as a maternal figure. And because, she pre The Force Awakens, Phasma, was super, on the what's the hype train, as far Ozzy, shut up. was super on the hype train for Finn. Like, she wanted him to be, an officer, and she wanted him to become something incredible because she saw all that potential in him. And then he defected. He like ran away from home, and he came back, and she was going to punish him, and then he got the better of her. And so in that way, every single main character, not to say anything about Rose, I suppose, because she's the main character in my heart, but as far as the story goes, I don't think she's a main character. But, like, every main character sort of has that, like, parental adult figure that, even though they're adults, like, they still have that older figure that they are butting heads with in some capacity.
Absolutely. Absolutely agreed.
Fully agreed, too.
Luke astral projecting himself onto Crate was probably one of the coolest things I've seen in a Star Wars movie. Did you guys guess that he wasn't really there?
I was like, your hair is different. And as soon as he pulled out the saber, I'm like, something's wrong. That's the saber that we just saw got broken.
Yes. Dude, it was so good. Like, I picked up on it not immediately, but like part of the way through the battle, because Luke wasn't leaving footprints. I'm like, wait a second. It showed like random soldier number 34 leaving footprints, but not Luke. So, whoa. And his saber, it's blue and not green. Whoa. And he's wearing the same outfit from Return of the Jedi. What the fuck? What's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion as far as that goes. A lot of it was mostly just like, I don't know, like, I guess there was a part of me that was like, everything about this is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, he
Everything
looks wrong.
Everything
He's
you
using
just
the wrong
said.
saber.
Everything you just said is wrong.
So yeah, like, it's just kind of one of those things where I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how he survived those blasts, but, like, everything is wrong about this. For half a second, I really thought we were, like, going super Gary Stu with this shit. I'm like, God damn it, really? Is this how we're gonna bring Luke back, where he's just completely invincible? Oh. So yeah, like, that was interesting for me. Why do you think he chose to use the blue saber? Because I have an idea, but I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts.
I don't know if he chose it or if it's just a byproduct of.
I think he chose it because it was the last saber he'd seen, but also it's the Skywalker saber to sort of remind Kylo of who he is. He's like, this was supposed to be yours if this were to happen. It was mine, my father before me, you know, your grandfather still. It's the same line if I kind of pass it down to you. This is who you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to be wielding.
I dig that. I'm kind of the mindset that neither Luke nor Kylo Ren knows that that saber is broken. Rey only knows because she woke up and picked the pieces up, you know? Like, we could see it cracking, but that thing, you know, the explosion happened, and as far as Kylo knows, you know, she just took the saber. And so in my head, I kind of wondered if Luke knew that, shut up! You're not a part of this! Why are you trying to mansplain me? Anyway, I wonder if Luke could tell that, like, the connection with Rey was important to Ben in some capacity. And because it does seem like he was trying to enrage him. Like, he specifically made himself look the way he did the night everything went down. And so I can't help but wonder if perhaps maybe he thought that if he used the saber that Rey was using, Kylo would think that Rey gave it to him to use against him and get more enraged and be more, what's the word, unobservant, because everything really relied on him distracting him, you know, because he was trying to buy time for the Resistance as well as give Ben the tools he needs to, you know, forgive himself and move on and come back to the light, because, you know, Luke says that he can't save Ben, but I think the point is in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren says, you know, I killed your son. You know, your son was weak and foolish, so I killed him. Which means he's the only one who can bring him back to life. Because he's the one who snuffed him out. He's the only one who can bring himself back. And I think that's kind of what, shut up! And I think that's kind of what Luke's line was supposed to suggest when he says, I can't save him, but no one is ever, you know, really gone. So I think that's meant to give hope to Leia in some capacity, that her son will come back to the light. But that was a bit of a rambly kind of train of thought. But the point is, you know, he was trying to buy him time, or he was trying to buy the Resistance time, and so he needed Kylo to be angry and enraged and not pay attention, because if he noticed for like 1 second that something was off, you know, he would have just been like, oh, screw this is a hologram, who cares? And he would have been like, storm the base. And the Resistance would have been toast. And so he had to keep a distraction for as long as possible, which includes pissing him off. So he makes himself look the way he looks. He's using the saber that Kylo wants. And he's using the saber that would have the most emotional damage to him, because Rey would have to have handed over that saber to Luke in order for him to be using it.
That's true. I never would have thought about that. Come on, JJ. Don't fail us.
But yeah, so, you know, I think Crate was specifically, everything that Luke did, I think, was specifically to try and distract Kylo Ren from noticing that he wasn't actually there for a multitude of reasons.
Yep, I definitely agree. And Amber, I think it was you who said that you were into Stargate, which is a relevant question for I'm going to follow this up with.
I am not into Stargate.
But you know what the Ascendeds are, though, right? Or the Ancients, like the Ascended beings?
Yeah.
So I've seen people make the argument that Luke didn't really die. He ascended, similar to the Ancients from Stargate.
That's interesting.
Which is why Mark Hamill will be able to come back for 9, even though technically Luke died in 8. I don't know. I think
No,
that's
see, here's the thing is, I think becoming one with the Force is doing that.
exactly.
Like, I think in order to become a Force ghost, you have to, ascend, because not every Jedi becomes a Force ghost.
Okay,
Like,
so to become a Force ghost, it's actually like I'm gonna go into this. They show it in Clone Wars. That is the end of spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen Clone Wars, but it ended a while ago. That's the end of season 6. Is
what?
literally learning how to be a Force ghost. So,
Interesting.
and it talks about like one of the things you have to do is, and Yoda has a hard time with it because it's like part of it is he has to embrace the dark, and you have to come back from the dark. So you have to, if you are light side, you have to embrace the dark and come back. If you're dark side, you have to embrace the light and come back. It's basically, I think that, well, I don't know if the second part is true, but it's a lot of like, you have to have experienced both sides of the Force and found your own inner peace and gone through like these trials to be able to be a Force ghost. You look at it, you go, okay, so that's the explanation for Yoda, and you kind of see, and it's a lot easier to see how Anakin became one then, because at the very end he comes back and like embraces everything. Um, you're not really sure how Obi-Wan did it because you're like, when did you ever go dark? But we don't know about these things, so whatever. Um, we'll let you slide. It is highly possible that Luke will be able to be a Force ghost because
I
of
hope
that.
he is.
But like they've shown how it happens.
I'm confident that because Luke has been tempted by the dark side enough and given into it in some capacity that he can easily be a Force ghost. And we also don't know what he was doing for, the years between Return of the Jedi and, Ben's fall.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he has plenty of time to kind of mess with. And that's another thing, is because we don't see those years, I really hate the criticism, like, that's not the Luke I know. Like, you don't know Luke. He's that cousin that you saw 24 years ago and you ain't even seen him since.
Exactly, and even the books, like the Legend of Luke Skywalker, half of what you read is fabricated crap. It's the legend of Luke, rather than the man Luke, of what actually happened to Luke and what changed Luke. And
Yeah.
even in Battlefront, where you meet him on Pelio, he's still not the same Luke from Return of the Jedi. He's still different. He's still changed. He's still much darker. He's still much more somber. He's not, I want to go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters. He's changed. He underwent character growth and development, and as such became a different character than how he started out in A New Hope.
Oh, you mean this adult character is different than the 19-year-old you liked? Go figure.
I know.
But Tashi Station.
Power converters, man. Yeah, and I've also seen people be really critical, saying that Luke basically committed suicide, and I'm like, that's stupid. Luke made the choice that he was going to make. Luke went out the way. He knew he was going to die. He said at the beginning of the film, I came to this island to die. It tells you what's going to happen. The film is really good at telling you what's going to happen without you realizing it's telling you what's going to happen. Did you hear what my husband said?
Yes.
No,
They heard you.
I did not.
He's like, yeah, only if you're a dumbass.
Well, I mean, just think about how at the very beginning, Kylo's like, you will bring Skywalker to me. And then he's like, you're not doing this. The effort would kill you. Uh, foreshadowing.
Exactly. No, this movie is so good at telling you without telling you. And then when you watch it again, you're like, oh my God, how did I not see that the first time? If you hear my hubby, we're sharing an office now, so it's kind of one of those you might be
Oh,
able to.
Lord. It's okay. I'm sharing an office with my cat.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, no, the whole thing where Luke is clearly like sacrificing himself in the sense that he knows that astral projecting like that is gonna kill him. Um, like, that's the point. And that's part of the reason why Ben Solo has to be redeemed. Because both Han and Luke have now died in an effort to save him. And those deaths become meaningless if he's not redeemed. And so, like, yes, Han and Luke were there to do other things, to save the Resistance, but they still took the time to try to save Ben. Because Luke could have easily just taunted him like, neener, 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 should have killed you when I had the chance, you stupid piece of shit. And he didn't. Like, he did not try to make the situation worse with Ben. Even though he could have enraged him to the point and distracted him forever, he didn't. You know, he did what he thought was right and what was natural, and he made an effort to save his nephew. Or at least give his nephew the tools to save himself.
In the final shot with Kylo, though, you see that. You see a little lone tear go down his face, and like that kicked puppy dog face, and like, okay, they're sowing the seeds of him being fucking terrible and conflicted in episode 9.
Oh, absolutely, because, like, you see him, like, again, you know, I will always make it clear that I'm not that person who cares for the divides between characters like Anakin and Vader and Kylo Ren and Ben. But I do think that the person we see in the command shuttle and on Crate is Kylo Ren, that angry, out of control person who's just, you know, wanting to watch the world burn. And then you, at the very end, the last shot we get of Kylo Ren is actually of Ben. Because he sees the dice, he is reminded of his father in that capacity. He just had the fight with Luke. And then he sees Rey, and she doesn't look at him with hatred. She looks at him with, like, disappointment. That's a big part for him. I mean, do you see how fast he looks up when he can, like, sense that they're connected?
Oh my God, and the thing is, like, you can tell, like, because I still think that every time he acts out and everything is when the light side is, like, trying to be like, no, this is not how you're supposed to go. Bad Ben Solo. He's like, no, I swear I'm evil. Angry is evil. And so he lashes out. He's like, fire everything on Skywalker, because the light side is like, go to him. Go. You need to talk to him. You need to figure out what happened and, you know, see that it wasn't the way you thought it was. And he's like, shoot him and kill him. Burn. And so the end scene when he's looking up at Rey is him being like, I've really fucked this up. This is not how this is not how this was supposed to go. This didn't go the way that I thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, I think that last scene is absolutely, like, the shot of him getting everything he's wanted. He's in control of the First Order. He has infinite power. He's strong, you know, and I'm confident he probably felt Luke dying as well. You just get the sense that he has everything he thought he always wanted, and it's not right. Nothing is right. And I think he realizes that in that moment, like, you know, I mean, when you factor in the amount of times he's probably seen that door close on him, the way he flinches, like, ugh.
Oh God, now I'm just thinking about, like, Ben watching the door close to the Falcon and, like, Leia waving by with Han standing right there, or maybe not even Han standing right there. Maybe Han thought that Ben wasn't looking and already walked away, but Leia's still there, like, waving because they're leaving him with Luke, and Luke is just gonna be like, "It's gonna be okay, kid, and we'll have fun," and just like,
It's painful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Super painful. I don't understand how people can hate Ben. Like, Kylo, sure, I get it. But, like, Ben, that kid's a heartbreak in a basket. Like, excuse me, I'll take one heartbreak, please. Oh, here's your Ben Solo. I don't know. It's super tragic. But, I was trying to think if there's any other aspects of the Force plot that we haven't delved into that aren't, Reylo specific, which we will be talking about in another episode.
I think that's pretty much it.
I mean, there are other things I could talk about, but they do kind of lead into Reylo, and I know if I bring them up, I'm just going to start talking about Reylo. So I think that's about it. So, yeah, that'll do it. That's everything that we can think to talk about in regards to the Force plot. That isn't going to be brought up in the next episode. So, yeah, we're pretty much that'll be it for us today. If you want to follow us on Tumblr, you can find us at Council of the Whills. We are you can listen to us on SoundCloud and YouTube at Council of the Whills. If you would like to shoot us an email, you can send it to councilofthewhills@gmail.com. And yeah, we're still working on other sorts of social media and listening sites and whatnot, but it's always a work in progress. So yeah, with that, have a good day. I'm Amber.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Jane.
And may the Force be with you.